brand new details on a stunning act of possible political violence. A man who ran down and murdered a teenager with his truck, believing he was, quote, a Republican extremist. Captain Brian Newind of the North Dakota Highway Patrol says there's no evidence that the teen was a Republican extremist, and facts of the case so far do not support Shannon Brandt's claims that he and Kayla Ellington argued about politics or that the teenager was calling for people to come after Brandt. The investigation is still ongoing. The case is putting a spotlight on the consequences of heated political rhetoric. Senator Rand Paul, quote, saying, words can have violent consequences. President Biden needs to realize that his vilification of his opponents is inflaming some of his supporters to violence. As a victim of political violence, both sides need to recognize the consequences of heated rhetoric. You know, before I get into the consequences of heated rhetoric, Jesse, it's very interesting. This case, there seems to be not a lot of information. The state's attorney in that county, and I've called that office several times, they're not even answering the phone. The attorney general in the state, you know, speaks out about the murder, and at least he says the suspect has admitted that his actions were motivated by a dispute over political beliefs. But there's not a lot more that's out there. What do you know about this case?
Well, there's not a lot out there. It's a very, very small town, and the funeral, I believe, is tomorrow or Sunday, and they're bringing in security for the funeral because they feel like the entire media has descended upon this story online, not the mainstream media. And you know how small towns protect themselves. It's a very tender and fragile time right now, and the funeral hasn't even happened. So I believe once the funeral's over, you might hear more about this. But this guy's story doesn't add up. We talked about it yesterday. If you're in a truck, how's a teenager threatening you with a phone and his crew's not even there? I actually think this guy might have either made up the Republican extremist thing, or this guy said, we're hearing, sources are telling us, he said one word to the guy, one word, and he snapped. And you look at a country that's teetering, right? I mean, this country's not the best we've ever been right now. Financially, psychologically, we're coming off of COVID. Rand Paul got his ribs cracked. Steve Scalise got a bullet in the heart. There's been lots of major violent attacks against high-profile Republicans. Hillary goes out and she brings up Nazism and Trump, and this is on the heels of Joe Biden saying half the country's fascist. So people need to pump the brakes right now because you do not want this to get worse.
But one of the problems, it seems, is that the guy who's doing the investigation, this Newind, if that's his name, you know, is basically saying there's no evidence of this, you know, extremism. But the evidence comes from the defendant's mouth. The accused is the one who's saying that he was an extremist, the victim that he ran over. And I don't understand why they're not clearer about what it is. I understand they don't want to instigate or cause any problem, but at the same time, the facts are the facts. But it seems, as Jesse said, that when a Republican, you know, gets shot at a baseball game by a Sanders supporter, because that Republican is, you know, that guy playing is a Republican, everybody says, let's all be friends. Let's all be friends.
Well, but don't forget, you know, the president was talking about sicking the FBI on domestic terrorists who happen to be right-wing domestic terrorists, and they are the biggest threat to the homeland. You know, that's coming out of the president's mouth. And they also said that they were going to investigate members of the military and law enforcement to make sure that they're not harboring far-right extremist views. So they've already painted half the country with a very violent brush. And just because someone believes something differently than you, they still have the right to exist. They still have the right to express their opinions. This was an 18-year-old kid who had the right to go to college and get a job and have a family and all the other things people do. A 41-year-old, even if he had a political disagreement, does not have the right to end the life of a kid. And I'm sure technically he was an adult, but this is where so many people are. They feel like violence is justified because political differences are in themselves violence, that words are violence. That's where we are, and that is so incredibly dangerous. And I encourage people, if you have friends and family members who have differences of opinion in terms of politics, reach out to them this weekend. Make things better. Find common ground.
Mom?
But Tyrus, I mean, the truth is that You know, we are on edge. This country is on edge. And we've got a president and people like Hillary Clinton, you know, they're saying that we're extremists and that we're Nazis and fascists and all this other stuff. I mean, at some point, you know, it's got to stop.
Well, the truth is criminals know that. He knows that. And they're emboldened and they do things. And the cop-out is, well, he was a Republican extremist. Like, during the civil rights era, when there was change, someone, I thought he was black. I thought it was a black man trying to escape my house. That's why I shot him. And there was a certain time.
That still happens.
That still happens, right? And it's not accepted now. And this is the same thing, where he sees the same TV everybody else does. He probably didn't like the way the kid looked. He probably wasn't paying attention. Whatever he did, he ran him down. And then when they brought him in and they had him dead bang, he was in the car. He called the 911. The young man passed away. Oh, he was a Republican extremist. That changed the whole thing, because we're not talking about this young man. We're not talking about the cold-blooded murder. You don't have to be Jessica Fletcher to solve this one. But instead, we're arguing over whether this was a political hate crime or not. Regardless of what it was, this man killed this young man. He ended his life. Period. Whatever his excuse was, whatever is irrelevant. This should be an open and shut case, but this is what the media is talking about.
And what Tyrus is saying, it was cold-blooded murder, and yet he's still charged with vehicular manslaughter. It's not vehicular manslaughter. He took a vehicle and used it as a weapon to kill someone.
I heard you yesterday about that, and I think you're right. First of all, all of our prayers go out to the deceased and the family and to that whole community, which is a very small community dealing with this. I think we should all let all these facts come out. And we may find even more out tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday on the show. The last thing is, what troubles me is that this person that killed this young man thought that somehow or another his actions might be perceived differently if he said it was because of a political dispute. All of us around this table have our views. People watching have their views. We may agree or disagree with one another, but Kennedy, you said it well. Everyone's entitled to their views. We all, again, got to take a step back and understand we can like one another, we can argue with one another, we can disagree with one another, we can be wrong, we can be right, but we certainly don't have to engage in violence. And for this man to believe that he could find some justification or maybe find some mitigation in his penalty, saying that this 18-year-old was a MAGA Republican, we've descended to a very, very low place, and I hope we can all figure out that as much as we may differ or we agree, we've got to lift ourselves up a bit. So my prayers go out to this community as they mourn.
Yep, we have descended, that's for sure. The Fastest is up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.